The market was alive with noise and shadows. Tall buildings leaned over broken stalls, and bright lights flickered as if they too were tired of shining. Alien voices shouted, argued, and bargained. Some sold food, some sold weapons, and some sold living beings. The air smelled of dust, smoke, and fear. At the center of the square, a wooden stage stood under harsh light. Chains rattled as guards pulled a small figure onto the platform. The crowd fell silent for a moment, curious. A young alien girl, thin and trembling, stumbled forward. Her head was covered with a rough sack, her hands tied with iron cuffs. She looked too fragile, too small for the cruel world watching her. The auctioneer, a tall creature with sharp teeth and greedy eyes, raised his hand high, his voice thundered. "Tonight we sell a rare prize, a girl of unknown bloodline. Strong enough for work, young enough for pleasure, she will bring value to the one who dares to take her." The crowd laughed, some cheered, some whispered dark promises. The girl stood still, her body shaking. She could not see the crowd, but she could feel their eyes crawling over her like fire. Her heart raced. She tried to keep breathing, but the sack smelled of old cloth and sweat. Her world was nothing but darkness and chains. In the corner of the crowd stood a human traveler. His clothes were dusty from long roads, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. He had seen markets like this before, but this was different. Something about the girl's thin arms and trembling form caught his heart. He clenched his jaw. He knew the fate that awaited her if no one stepped forward. The auctioneer called for the first bid. A heavy silence filled the air. No one raised a hand. The crowd only waited, hoping the price would drop, hoping for cruelty at a cheaper cost. The girl swayed, her knees weak. She whispered under her breath, though no one could hear, "Please, not again." The human felt something stir inside him. He did not come here to buy slaves. He did not even plan to stop at this market. But now his hand twitched. His heart beat louder. The auctioneer shouted again, lowering the price, mocking the silence. No one? Afraid of a little girl? Afraid of chains that bind nothing but weak flesh? Laughter rose from the crowd, sharp and cruel. The human raised his hand. His voice was steady, cutting through the noise. "I'll take her." The laughter stopped. Whispers spread like smoke. A human, what use does he have for her? Is he mad? Maybe he's desperate. The auctioneer blinked in surprise, but quickly smiled. Sold, to the stranger with too much pity in his heart. The hammer struck, and the deal was done. The guards pushed the girl forward, her feet stumbling. On the rough wood, they dragged her down the steps and into the human's reach. He touched the chain, cold and heavy. His hand tightened, and for the first time she felt no cruelty in the grip of another. Still, she shook. Unsure if this was rescue or another prison, the market began to roar again, the sound of deals, drinks, and lies filling the air. But in the center of it all, something had changed. One life, one choice, had shifted the balance of fate. The human held the chain gently, and for the first time in many years he felt the weight of someone else's future in his hands. The girl whispered through the sack, her voice so small it was almost lost in the crowd. "Why?" The human did not answer yet. His jaw was tight, his heart heavy. He only knew one thing. He could not walk away. Not tonight, not from her. As they left the stage, the auctioneer shouted for the next sale. The crowd moved on, uncaring. But somewhere, in the shadows, eyes watched them, angry eyes, greedy eyes. The trade had not gone as planned, and those who lost profit would not forget the human who dared to steal a prize from under their claws. The night air outside the market was cold. The human led the girl slowly, careful not to frighten her more. Each step away from the square felt like a small victory, but deep inside he knew the real danger was only beginning. The girl's fate was dark, but the human had stepped into it, and in doing so, he had set a new path for them both. A path no one could yet see, a path that would test them, break them, and bind them in ways neither could imagine. The girl's chains rattled softly as the human led her away from the noise of the market. The night was quiet, broken only by her trembling steps on the rough ground. She could not see him. The sack still covered her head. All she knew was that the hand holding her chain felt different, not harsh, not cruel, but steady and careful. They reached a quiet corner near a broken wall away from curious eyes. The human crouched down and loosened the knot of the sack. The cloth slipped off, and for the first time, she looked up into the night sky. Her skin was pale blue, marked, with faint glowing lines that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes, wide and fearful, reflected the torchlight. She blinked, gasping at the sudden freedom of air on her face. The human looked at her properly now. She was younger than he had thought, no older than a teenager in human years, thin from hunger, weak from captivity, but there was something in her gaze, a quiet fire that refused to die. He reached into his bag and pulled out a flask of water, holding it to her lips. She hesitated, staring at him with suspicion, but her thirst was stronger than her fear. She drank, drops spilling over her chin as if she had not touched clean water in days. When she finished, she whispered in a cracked voice, "Why did you buy me?" Her words were simple, but the weight of them was heavy. She had been treated like nothing, yet this human had given away his money for her life. It did not make sense to her. The human did not answer right away. His eyes searched hers, trying to decide how much truth he should give. At last he said, "Because no one else would, and I couldn't stand by." His voice was calm but carried a sharp edge of anger. Anger not at her, but at the world that allowed this to happen. She looked at him in disbelief. Her whole life had been filled with those who saw her as property, as something to use, not someone to save. The idea that a stranger would step forward for no gain was beyond her understanding. Her hands shook, not only from fear now, but from confusion. The human worked on the cuffs with a small tool from his pocket. The iron resisted, but he was patient. Soon the first shackle fell away, then the second. The girl lifted her hands slowly, staring at her freed wrists as if they were not real. She whispered again, "You should not have done this. They will come for us both." Her words were true. The market was not a place where stolen profits were easily forgotten. The traders had seen the human's face, and they would not let such a challenge to their power pass. Somewhere in the shadows, hunters were already preparing to track them. The human nodded. He knew the danger. He had felt the eyes on his back when he left the stage, but he also knew there was no turning back now. He stood and offered her his hand. "Come with me, we can find safety." For a moment she did not move. Her eyes darted to the street behind them, to the lights of the market, and then back to his hand. Her voice shook as she said, "No one has ever given me a choice before." Slowly, almost as if afraid it would vanish, she placed her hand in his. It was small, trembling, but alive. They walked through narrow alleys, keeping to the dark. The girl stumbled more than once, her body still weak, and each time the human caught her before she fell, she whispered apologies, but he only shook his head, never letting go. In the silence of the night, a fragile trust began to grow, but danger followed close behind. In the market, the auctioneer slammed his fist on the table, furious. His eyes glowed with rage as he shouted orders to his guards. "Find them, bring back the girl, and if the human resists, break him." The hunters armed themselves with blades and tracking beasts. The chase had begun. Far from the noise, the human and the girl reached a small shelter made of stone and old metal. Inside, he gave her a blanket and some bread. She ate slowly, watching him with guarded eyes. Each bite felt unreal, as if it were a dream she feared would fade. Before lying down, she spoke again. "They called me cursed. They said I was worthless. Why would you risk your life for me?" Her voice cracked with something more than fear. It was pain, deep and old. The human sat across from her, his face in shadow, and said softly, "Because no one is worthless. Not while I'm here." The girl turned away, tears forming in her eyes. She had heard many lies in her life, but this voice felt different. For the first time, her chains were gone. For the first time, someone had stepped forward, not for power, not for gain, but for her. And though she did not yet know his name, She knew this moment had changed everything. The night grew colder as silence settled over the small stone shelter. The girl sat curled in the corner with the blanket wrapped tightly around her. Her glowing skin markings shimmered faintly in the dim light, soft like fading stars. She had never been in a place this quiet before. The market had always been loud, filled with cruelty, with voices shouting commands, but here there was only the sound of the wind pressing against the broken walls. The human sat nearby, sharpening a small knife. His eyes moved often to the doorway, alert, listening for footsteps. He had traveled long enough to know that safety was never certain. The hunters would not stop. He had stolen their prize, and men who dealt in lives were never forgiving. Still, he allowed himself a moment to look at her, and in her trembling form he saw something worth protecting. The girl lifted her thin wrists. The skin rubbed raw where the cuffs had been. She kept staring at them, as if afraid the chains might appear again. Her voice was soft. It feels strange. I don't hear them anymore, the clinking, the pulling. She looked at the human with wide eyes. Do you know how long I wore them? I don't even remember. He placed the knife aside and leaned forward. You don't have to remember, not anymore. His voice was calm, but inside he felt the weight of her words. He had seen many kinds of scars, but the ones chains left. On the heart were the deepest. Slowly, carefully, he pulled something from his pack. A small cloth. He reached out, waiting for her to allow him. When she didn't pull back, he began cleaning the wounds on her wrists. The girl flinched at first, expecting pain, but his touch was steady, gentle. Nothing in his movements reminded her of the cold hands that once dragged her through cages. For the first time in years, she let her guard fall, if only for a moment. You're free now, he said, binding her wrists with the clean cloth. No one owns you. The girl lowered her head. Her hair fell across her face, and tears touched the corner of her eyes. She whispered, Free. I don't even know what that means. She lifted her hands, staring at them. If no one tells me where to stand, where to sleep, what to do, what am I supposed to be? The human sat back, his jaw tight. He had no easy answer. He looked at her and said, You're supposed to be yourself, and if you don't know who that is yet, then we'll find out together. Her eyes widened. She searched his face for lies, but found none. For years she had been called worthless, cursed, a thing to be sold. Now this stranger told her she was something more. It frightened her because hope was more dangerous than chains. Hope could break her if it turned out false. The girl shifted closer to the fire he had built from scraps of wood. Its light made her markings glow brighter. She hugged her knees and whispered, They won't stop, you know. The men from the market, they'll come for me and for you. He nodded, his expression calm, though his heart was heavy. I know. He reached for his bag and checked his few weapons. A knife, a pistol with little power left, and his wits, that was all he had. But he had made his choice the moment he raised his hand at the auction. Outside, a shadow moved across the sand. One of the hunters paused at the edge of the ruins. Sniffing the air, his beast growled softly, catching a scent, but the wind shifted, carrying it away. For tonight the hunters passed by, unaware how close their prey was. Inside, the girl finally stretched her arms, the blanket sliding down. She looked at the cloth bandages on her wrists, and then at the human. When they dragged me to the stage, I prayed someone would see me. Not as a thing, but as a person. I thought no one would, and then, you raised your hand? Her voice cracked, trembling. Why? You don't even know me. The human leaned against the wall, his eyes fixed on the fire. I didn't need to know you. I only needed to know you deserved better than what they wanted for you. For a long time the girl was silent. She tried to understand his words, but they were heavier than the chains had ever been. She felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from something new, a strange warmth that frightened her even more. Finally, her eyes grew heavy. Her body had endured too much pain, too much hunger. Sleep came quickly. Her head rested on the blanket and her breathing softened. The human stayed awake, watching the fire die low, listening to every sound outside. His hand rested on the knife. His mind carried the weight of tomorrow, He had freed her from chains, but freedom came with a cost, and soon the hunters would demand it. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, he looked at the girl sleeping, fragile yet glowing with strange beauty, and he whispered to himself, "No matter what it takes, I'll keep you free." The shackles were gone, but in their place was something stronger, an unspoken bond, one that neither of them fully understood yet, but both could feel, and in the silent morning, as danger crept closer, that bond was all they had. The night was heavy with silence, yet the human did not trust it. He sat by the dim fire, sharpening his knife slowly, the sound of steel against stone echoing in the ruined shelter. The girl slept beside him, her breathing soft, her thin frame curled under the blanket he had given her. But even in sleep, her face looked troubled, as if shadows still clung to her dreams. The human's ears caught a faint sound outside, the crunch of sand beneath boots. He froze, holding his breath. After a long moment, the sound faded, but he knew what it meant. The hunters were close. Their patience was long and their reach even longer. He leaned back against the cracked wall, eyes on the door. His thoughts kept circling back to the choice he made at the auction. He had stepped forward without knowing why, but now as he watched the girl breathe softly, he realized it was no mistake. Something about her had struck him deeply, a spark worth risking his life for. Hours passed and the fire sank lower. Suddenly the girl stirred, her glowing markings flickering as her body shifted. Her eyes opened wide, fear filling them before she even remembered where she was. She sat up quickly, clutching the blanket. Her voice was sharp. "Where are we? Did they follow us?" The human raised a hand gently. "Calm down, we're safe for now, but you were right. They won't stop hunting us." Her shoulders sank and she pulled the blanket tighter. The firelight revealed the pain written across her face. She looked, down at her wrists, then at the floor. Her voice cracked. "You don't understand. It isn't just because I was sold, there's more. There's a reason they want me gone." The human frowned, leaning closer. "Then tell me. I need to know what danger we're really facing." For a moment, she hesitated, biting her lip. Her hands shook as she pulled the blanket aside. Her glowing markings, faint before, now pulsed brighter as if reacting to her emotions. She whispered, "I am not just any girl. My family, my bloodline is old. It carries power but also curse. The ones in the market were ordered to erase me from the galaxy, because if I live, I am a threat to them." Her words hung in the cold air like a blade. The human felt the weight of her confession settle on him. He understood now why the traitors had been so eager to be rid of her, why no one else had dared to raise a hand. The girl's eyes watered. She wrapped her arms around herself, her voice breaking. "They called me shame. They said my birth brought dishonor. I was hidden, locked away, until they dragged me to that market. My own kin turned from me, and those who hated my blood wanted me destroyed." She looked at him desperately. "Don't you see? You should leave me. If they find you with me, they will kill you." The human's jaw tightened. His heart burned with anger at the cruelty she had endured. He reached across the fire and placed a hand over hers. His voice was firm, steady. "I didn't save you to abandon you. If they come, they'll have to go through me first." Her eyes widened, tears falling freely now. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was a fool, but no one had ever spoken those words to her. No one had ever chosen her life over their own. The firelight flickered between them, and in that moment something deeper than gratitude stirred in her chest. Something like hope. Outside, the hunters were moving again, following trails, listening to whispers of the wind. One of them knelt in the sand, touching the faint footprints that led toward the ruins. "They're close," he hissed to the others. The beasts snarled low, eager for the chase. The leader raised his weapon, eyes cold. "At dawn we strike." Inside the shelter, the girl pulled the blanket back over her shoulders. Her voice was softer now, almost like a plea. "Why do you care so much? You don't know me. You could have walked away, you still can." The human shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. Because I've seen too many broken by this galaxy, too many left to suffer while others turn their backs. I won't be one of them. The girl's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to believe, but belief was dangerous. Still, as she lay down again, her eyes never left him, watching as he guarded the doorway like a silent wall against the darkness. The night stretched long, heavy with secrets and threats. And though danger crept closer with every hour, both the human and the girl knew one thing. Her story was no longer hers alone. It was theirs now, bound together by choice, by risk, and by the fragile hope that tomorrow might bring light instead of shadow. The first pale light of dawn touched the ruined shelter. The fire had died to ashes. The human was already awake, standing at the doorway, scanning the horizon. His instincts told him time was short. The hunters were near. He could feel it in the silence. The girl stirred under the blanket, her glowing markings dim in the morning light. She rubbed her eyes, confusion heavy on her face, until memory returned. She sat up quickly, fear rushing back into her voice. They are coming, aren't they? The human nodded, pulling the straps of his pack tight across his chest. Yes, we can't stay here any longer. We need to move before they find us. He handed her a small piece of bread, and though she ate slowly, she forced it down, knowing she would need the strength. When she tried to stand, her knees shook. She was still weak from hunger and from the weight of chains that had been on her too long. Without a word, the human steadied her with his arm. They left the shelter behind, stepping into the endless wasteland. The ground was dry, cracked, and filled with sharp stones that bit into their feet. The wind carried sand across the open plains, and the sun began to rise with merciless heat. There was no clear road, only broken paths where others had once walked. Every step was heavy for the girl. Her legs stumbled often, and more than once she fell to her knees. Each time the human helped her up, sometimes lifting her when her body refused to move. She whispered, ashamed, "I'm slowing you down." His answer was steady, without hesitation. "Then I'll carry you, but I won't leave you." Her chest tightened at his words. She had been abandoned so many times before that kindness felt like a lie, but his voice carried no lie, only a calm strength that she leaned on. Behind them, the hunters were not far. Their beasts sniffed the ground, catching faint traces of footprints. The leader's voice was sharp. They move slow. They won't last long in the wastelands. Keep pushing, the girl is ours. The hunters spread out, their weapons ready, their eyes scanning the horizon. By midday, the sun was cruel. The girl's lips cracked from thirst. Her steps faltered, again. The human searched the land, finally spotting a shadowed ridge of stone. He led her there, giving her the last of the water from his flask. She drank with shaking hands, her eyes fixed on him. "Why do you give me everything? You'll suffer too." He took the flask back, empty now, and shrugged. "I've survived worse. You need it more than I do." The girl lowered her gaze, clutching the flask. Her heart was torn between fear and something new. Trust in someone who should have left her but never did. They continued deeper into the wasteland. The land grew harsher, the rocks sharper. At night, the temperature dropped and the girl shivered in the cold wind. The human gave her his coat, wrapping it around her thin frame. He endured the chill without complaint. His only focus was keeping her safe. One night, as they rested under a cracked cliff, she whispered into the darkness, "I don't understand you. You risk your life, your strength, even your future. And for what? For me? I was nothing in their eyes. Why am I something in yours?" The human sat with his knife resting across his knees. His voice was low but firm. "Because I don't see what they see. I see someone who has survived things no one should. Someone worth saving. Someone who deserves a chance at life." Stung her eyes, she turned away, hugging the coat closer. She had been called cursed, worthless, unwanted. But here in the wasteland, this stranger spoke words that gave her something she had never known before. Value. As the days passed, the bond between them grew. The girl began to walk steadier, leaning less on him, though. His hand was always there when she stumbled. He taught her how to cover tracks in the sand, how to listen for danger in the wind. Slowly, she began to feel like more than just a burden, but the hunters drew closer. On the fifth night, their beasts howled under the moon. Their voices carried across the empty plains. The girl froze, fear gripping her chest. "They've found us!" The human gripped her shoulder firmly. "Then we keep moving. We don't stop. Not now." They ran through the night, the wasteland stretching endlessly before them. The girl's strength nearly failed, but when she fell, the human lifted her into his arms, carrying her without slowing. His breath was harsh, his muscles burned, but he never let her go. The sound of pursuit grew louder, blades clashing, voices shouting in the dark. The hunters were closing in, and yet as the girl clung to the human's shoulder, her heart no longer felt the despair it once had. She whispered through tears and exhaustion, "I'm not afraid. Not while you're here." The wasteland tested them, broke them, but it also forged something stronger, an unshakable bond. The human had given her more than freedom. He had given her the will to keep moving, step by step, even when the world wanted her gone. The wasteland stretched endless before them, but the sound behind was growing louder. The hunters had closed the distance. Their beasts howled in the night air, a cruel reminder that safety was slipping away. The girl clung to the humans, arm as they stumbled across the rocky ground, her breath ragged, her legs weak. By dawn, they reached the edge of a canyon. Its walls dropped steeply into darkness. The human paused, scanning the land. Behind them, the dust rose where the hunters approached. Ahead, only the abyss waited. His jaw tightened. "We're trapped." The girl's heart sank. Her voice broke with fear. "They'll catch us here. You should leave me, if they take me. At least you can escape." The human turned sharply, his eyes blazing. "No, don't ever say that again. I didn't fight for you, carry you, bleed for you just to walk away now." Tears blurred her vision. She shook her head. "You don't understand. They only want me, not you. If I give myself to them, they won't need to hurt you." He stepped closer, gripping her shoulders firmly. His voice was like iron. "If they take you, they'll kill you, or worse. And if I let that happen, I'll be no better than the ones who sold you. I won't let them win." The girl's lips trembled. No one had ever spoken to her with such certainty. She felt a warmth in her chest, even as fear threatened to crush her. For the first time, she wanted to believe someone could stand against the darkness for her sake alone. The first hunter appeared on the ridge, a tall figure clad in black armor. His weapon gleamed in the morning light. More followed behind, their beasts snarling as they spread into a half circle. The leader raised his voice, sharp as a blade. "Give us the girl, human. Step aside, and you may yet live." The human moved, in front of the girl, his body forming a shield between her and the hunters. His knife was small, his pistol nearly empty, but his stance was unshakable. His voice rang out, "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." Laughter rose. Among the hunters, cruel and mocking. "A single man against us all?" Their leader sneered. "You'll be nothing but a stain on the ground." The girl's heart raced. She grabbed the human's sleeve, whispering desperately, "Please don't do this. You can't fight them all." He looked back at her, his face calm despite the odds. "Maybe not, but I can buy you time. If I fall, you run. Don't waste the chance." Her eyes widened, horror filling her. "No, I won't leave you. Not after everything. I can't." He gave her a small, faint smile, one filled with quiet strength. "Then trust me. Trust that I'll do whatever it takes to keep you free." The hunters began to advance, their boots pounding the ground. The beast snarled, ready to leap. The human raised his pistol, firing the last of his shots. 2 hunters fell, but the weapon clicked empty. He threw it aside, gripping his knife tightly. The girl cried out, trying to step forward, but the human pushed her back. "Stay behind me," he ordered. His knife flashed in the morning light, slashing at the first beast that lunged. Blood sprayed across the sand. The hunters roared in anger. Surrounding him, the girl's body shook. She could not bear to watch, yet she could not look away. Each strike he made was desperate, but fueled by something stronger than fear. His determination burned brighter than their cruelty. Still, the numbers pressed down on him. A blow struck his side, blood staining his clothes. He staggered but refused to fall. His eyes locked on the girl, and through the pain, his voice reached her. "You're not worthless, remember that, no matter what happens." Her tears fell freely. Her heart screamed with agony. She wanted to throw herself into the fight, but she was too weak, too small. She could only clutch the edge of the canyon, praying for a miracle. The leader of the hunters stepped forward, raising his blade for the final strike. The girl screamed, "No!" Her voice echoed across the canyon. Her glowing markings flared brighter than ever, burning like fire under her skin. The hunters froze, startled. The air trembled with strange energy. The human staggered back, gasping, but his eyes widened as he saw the girl's body shining with power she had hidden. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest, terrified by her own strength. The hunters looked at one another in fear, their leader snarling, "She's dangerous. Kill her now." The human moved instantly, stepping in front of her again despite his wounds. His body a wall of defiance. His voice was hoarse but strong. "You'll never touch her." The hunters charged, but in that moment, the girl's power exploded outward. A wave of light and force swept across the canyon, throwing them back. The beasts howled in terror, scattering. The leader barely held his ground, his eyes wide with rage and fear. When the dust settled, the human stood breathing hard, the girl trembling behind him. Her glow dimmed, leaving her exhausted. But the hunters had been stopped, at least for now. He helped her to her feet, holding her close, whispering, "See, even now you're stronger than you believe." The girl buried her face against his chest, tears hot against her cheeks. She had begged him to leave her, begged him to save himself. But he had chosen her life instead. His sacrifice was not his, death, but his refusal to abandon her. And in that choice, her heart found a new strength. The canyon was quiet after the storm of light. Dust hung heavy in the air, broken stones lay scattered, and the hunters, who had once stood fearless now, lay groaning on the ground or retreating into the shadows. Their beasts whined in fear, pulling away from the girl whose glow had burned brighter than fire. The human stood trembling, his knife still in his hand, blood soaking his side. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, yet his eyes never left. The girl? She knelt in the dust, her glowing markings fading slowly until only faint lines remained. Her hands shook as she stared at them, whispering, "What have I done?" He dropped the knife and staggered to her, kneeling down despite the pain. His hand rested gently on her shoulder. "You saved us. That's what you did." Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, her voice breaking. "No, I was never meant to survive. They wanted me gone because of this power. It's dangerous, I'm dangerous." The human lifted her chin with his hand, forcing her to meet his gaze. His voice was firm, steady, even though his body was weak. "No, you are not dangerous. You are alive, and you deserve to be free no matter what they say." For a moment, silence hung between them. Only the wind moved across the canyon, carrying with it the first light of dawn. The girl's tears glistened in that light, and for the first time she felt the warmth not as shame but as hope. The surviving hunters dragged themselves up, but before they could attack again, a new sound filled the canyon, a low hum, growing louder. From the sky descended sleek ships with shining silver hulls. Their engines burned bright as they landed on the canyon ridge. Figures stepped out, warriors armored in the same glowing patterns the girl bore on her skin. Her breath caught, "My kin," she whispered. Her body shook, torn between fear and longing. For years she had been abandoned by them. Now they appeared when she least expected. The warriors surrounded the hunters, weapons raised. The leader of the hunters spat on the ground and shouted, "She should not exist. You know it. She is a curse." One of the armored warriors stepped forward, his voice thunderous. "She is no curse. She carries the bloodline that you tried to erase. And now she is under our protection." With one swift order, the hunters were forced back, dragged away in defeat. The girl stared, stunned. Her people had returned for her, but she did not run to them. Instead, she turned to the human who still knelt beside her, bleeding but unbroken. Her heart twisted, because while her kin had power, It was the human who had given her life back. The warriors approached, one kneeling before her. "Child, you are safe now. Come with us. You will be cared for, honored as you should be." She looked between them and the human, her eyes filled with conflict. Her voice trembled. "Safe, yes, but only because of him. He stepped forward when none of you did. He carried me through fire and wasteland. He fought for me when I was ready to give myself up. How can I leave him now?" The warriors exchanged glances, uncertain. The human placed a hand gently on her arm, his voice quiet. "You don't owe me anything. Go with them. It's your chance to live without chains." Her chest tightened. She shook her head, gripping his hand tightly. "No, you don't understand. I don't want to live without you. You gave me more than freedom. You gave me worth. You gave me hope." The human's eyes softened. He had not expected her words. He had only wanted to save her from the dark fate she faced. Yet now he saw something in her gaze that was stronger than fear, stronger than pain. The warriors lowered their weapons slowly, watching in silence as the girl stood, pulling the human to his feet with surprising strength. She turned to them, her voice steady. "For the first time, I will not return to my people unless he comes with me. This human is not just my savior. He is my family." The canyon echoed with her declaration. The warriors bowed their heads, acknowledging her choice. "Then so it shall be. He will be honored among us." Relief washed over her as she wrapped her arms around the human, holding him tightly. His body was battered, his clothes torn, but he was alive. He leaned into her embrace, whispering, "You're free now. Truly free." She shook her head against his chest. "No, not just free. I am finally alive." As the sun rose higher, the canyon filled with light. The hunters were gone, the shadows pushed back. The girl stood tall beside the human, no longer trembling. Her dark fate had been broken, not by her kin, not by her hidden power, but by the heart of one human who had stepped forward when no one else would. Together they walked toward the waiting ship, hand in hand, leaving behind the dust of chains and the echoes of cruelty. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. A new dawn that belonged to both of them, and for the first time the girl smiled, her voice soft but certain. "Wherever we go together."